And that's what everyone's trying to navigate in doing any form of spiritual work, really starting to identify the blind spot, but no longer feel encumbered by it. Because as soon as the blind spot is decoded, you start to feel that sovereignty and agency over your consciousness. Before then, what's experienced is a hierarchy between you and yourself. Literally, that's the nature of a blind spot. And while it may seem that the blind spot has the power to sabotage your reality, really what's not seen beneath that blind spot is it's supporting different versions of yourself that haven't been seen in the past. And because of that, the split in awareness ends up being projected through an outer experience, which causes you to feel like you aren't the creator of it. Because what hasn't been seen in your past will inevitably end up being projected on the mirror screen of your physical experience until you really come to see those parts of you that are still trying to be witnessed. And of course, like we talk about here, it always has to do with these unprocessed emotions, be it shame or judgment, guilt, fear. These lower density states end up collapsing you in that energy of coherence, causing what feels like an internal part, which is the victim self, the wounded self, you and your shadow. There's many different ways of looking at it and names for it, but the essence is the same. An element of you that doesn't allow you to be expressing coherently in the energy of love through the sense of inner resolution and alignment with your deeper values and what you really want to be experiencing. It's by creating space between you and a self that is entangled with all these lower frequency thought forms and emotions and feeling like you're a prisoner to your past, to creating the distance from that, which I've already talked about, is kind of stepping into an out of body frame of reference and really looking at yourself from above and beyond. And then starting to assess, all right, what's in that me that feels encumbered by all the elements outside of my control? And then you realize they actually are within your control. It's through the management of awareness that that begins to happen. So everyone, imagine it's roughly like this. Like from that standpoint where you feel like you are just a mix of all the blind spots and elements of you that prevent you from stepping into your own higher self alignment, you can't see that deeper awareness. You can't understand that your blind spots are really encoded soul wisdom, which wants to be uncovered and applied lovingly. So what's important to do is to step into that other frame of reference, almost like you're stepping out of the little Russian nesting doll into the higher octave state. And then you're observing that version of you. You're seeing that confusion. You're starting to feel empathy for all of that loss and uncertainty and the pain that has once been experienced. But still, in the evaluation of what's happening in your lower self experience, you can't fully decode the deeper knowing. You just start to assess the reasons why the blind spots have been there. But still, the level of wisdom that would allow for the breakthrough can't fully be experienced. And so imagine then going even higher, stepping out of that body and into the more causal body experience where there's a spiritual understanding of where the pain comes from, why it's there, and how it can be healed. And from that point, there's pure wisdom. So, this is where I feel we can take it to the next level. A practice I want to share with all of you to try on your own. And it's quite complex. It'll seem like the simplest thing ever, but really, I challenge you to do this and to treat it as one of the most important things you can do for yourself, as initially a test, sort of like a screening to see how integrated you are, and then deepening into it so it becomes a deeper state of devotion to this integrity, to your soul's nature. So it involves looking at yourself in the mirror. And a lot of people, when they do that, you look at yourself like you're the seer, you're the observer. And what you're seeing in the mirror is an object. And that's really what allows blind spots to be upheld. This duality between the observer and the object, the seer and what's seen. But of course, you're dealing here with just you. So what you're actually observing is the dance of awareness and perception and the fixed self, which really is always in a state of fluidity. But when you're looking at yourself, you likely don't think about all these different options that you have and how you're able to create that awareness. So start to look at yourself and feel then, are you just looking at you, or is the reflection also starting to observe you? And that moment when the reflection is actually looking back at you, meaning what's seen is seeing you, that's the point where no blind spots can be upheld, because that marks that collapse of the duality between observer and observed. And that's the point where you feel this kind of oneness emerge, where you're no longer upholding elements of you that are trying to not see you. And so you might feel like the victim is being seen. The victim in you always wanted to be seen. And as soon as it's seen, it's no longer a victim because the mission was accomplished. You observe the parts that were hidden, that were underneath the mask, that were upholding the duality, causing the fear, creating the sabotage, really all the elements that are waging war in reality because they want so badly to be integrated. So as soon as you dare step into the frame of reference where you become the one who holds all of these elements of the masking, the fear, the dichotomies within the subconscious, that collapse happens. And what emerges is this almost lighthearted dance of elements inside of you. And it can be humorous a little bit. It could be sad. It could bring up a wave of different emotions. And that's also super important to understand and just allow, because what will come through is a cascade of emotional unleashing, like you unloading all of that suppressed energy, which has been kept dormant because you've been categorizing when you can be this self, when you can be that self, what you're allowed to see and witness, and what is shameworthy or something that's worth judging inside of you. So if you dare step into this mode where you're looking for more ways to be intimate with yourself and to find that your awareness is actually taking you into those parts of you, you can't hide anymore. And if you can't hide, that's it. You've gotten to that point where you start to sense everything else that's trying to come through, and you just have to hold space for it. So automatically, you become that vehicle, which is like that third body I mentioned, where you start to witness things objectively from a perspective of your soul's truth, and deeper wisdom starts to come in. And then you bring that through your physical experience. So, in a sense, you're the vessel between your soul and the physical world. That's the point where everything starts to become a lot more fluid, synchronistic, flow like. And actually, you'll feel like once you can really look at yourself as the seer and the seen simultaneously, then you'd be betraying yourself every time you donned a mask, you said something inauthentic, you felt fear and you gave into it. All these micro moments you'd feel are actually tests between you and your own soul, and ways that you either betray yourself or you actually continue to deepen and resolve this dichotomy through real action. And then there's the paradox of what happens when you become so translucent inside you, when you start to see all these parts of you and you start to see reality more clearly as a byproduct of that, seeing where people have been hijacking the process by avoiding their shadow, sensing the inequality in people's field. So, like, they'll say one thing, but their body language suggests something else, or you'll feel that there is a split, even in the way that things are presented, but what's actually happening beneath the surface is holding a totally different truth. And when you can feel those things, that kind of radical discernment that comes through, it makes you a mirror. And the irony and backwards aspect of the mirror is that it creates even more polarity. So think about what happens when you're really emitting that transparent signal. It's like the signal of coherence, but it either will allow some people that are not triggered by that depth of the mirroring principle to naturally organize in the orbit of that mirror, which is a big part of how I do what I do. It's part of that mirroring. It's showing many, many layers beneath the surface of what the conscious mind can see and fully comprehend. But then at the same time, those who can't honor the mirroring principle of themselves, they get so agitated by it because the mirror reveals to them everything that they are still harboring as that deep and dark duality. So basically, when you go through this kind of deep process of layer by layer, seeing yourself, assessing the big picture, holding a kind of principle of transparency as your core energy signature, prepare to feel like people respond to you completely differently based on that kind of coherence. And that's why everything feels backwards. When you realize that, you start to see how when people get triggered, it's because you're actually carrying this beacon of truth. You're shining true light and it triggers their darkness, which is where discernment really lives. It's in the body, which is the feminine part of the conscious experience. Even if your mind wants to believe something, like to go along with a certain mass perspective, or even to be comforted by some illusion, your body will know that something is off because you'll feel that somewhere there's still tension, or maybe even a belief that feels comforting at the level of the psyche. It prevents you from experiencing deeper comfort in your soma. And you'll know that because the nervous system is still tense. And you'll feel something has to be backwards in my reality because I don't feel like there's total alignment between my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual experiences. So that's how you really know. If something is backwards, something will keep agitating you. And it'll be like a subconscious search for meaning to try to figure out, how do I bring things back into that higher order alignment? But that takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to really start to be that agent of reorganization, which is that deep dive that a lot of people are now navigating. Is there something that you felt, especially in the last month or so, come up that's felt super intense, but that has felt triggering to fully give yourself to merge with that feeling? It could be grief. It could be an intense fear. It could be the sense that you need to detach from something to establish that higher order alignment, but you feel afraid of letting go. Anything that's creating that kind of deep duality, and it's bringing up parts of you that seemingly want different things, but there's a deeper emotion which is holding you tethered to that split. And so my suggestion would be to go into that emotion that feels like it's going to consume you and change you. Because if you do, the backwards principle plays in, and what will happen is you actually achieve a transcendent state. This is also the nature of heart consciousness, is it creates the deepest trigger. When you're in the state of non-duality, which is basically you first were in duality, you merged with a higher level awareness outside of it, is now you become that trigger, you become that mirror. And because of that, you start to feel this stretching of the heart field, which allows you to hold all the duality, but to not fight it anymore. It's like that feeling of you breathing into all of the splits or fragments in your field, but then ultimately feeling they all merge into this kind of property of oneness that allows you to feel everything and not to feel threatened by it. And it's extremely intense. It's like the state of, imagine going deep into the most traumatizing thing that either you've ever experienced or a collective trauma, and feeling tremendous grief or pain. And at the same time, once you go into that state, you're able to size up an opportunity to achieve liberation. And then you're flooded with joy or with a feeling of understanding and wisdom that gives you that key to freedom. But it can seem like to the mind, this doesn't make any sense at all. How you can feel grief and joy in the same breath. How can you feel these things which seem like opposite ends of the scale as part of one continuum? That's the collective challenge right now. And it's such a deep personal challenge because all of us seem to have some kind of limits to our ability to feel or our desire to go this deep. But really, if you challenge yourself to go to this point of no longer creating separation between your emotional depths and how you express them, you're going to feel like something new in you opens up. And it's a kind of strength and a courage to be willing to merge with that feminine part of your being, which is essentially what your soul wants you to be experiencing. And if you can hold that, then the fears and these kind of more surface level emanations of doubt, uncertainty, feelings of chaos, they also disintegrate because you become invincible if you can go that deep into your awareness and really hold such a paradox. If you give yourself this gift of really seeing yourself in the sense of allowing for the evolutionary jump, it'll be a turning point. You won't be able to see yourself as even having the option of allowing blind spots to sabotage your life path. See how even that becomes a contradiction if you allow yourself to be this more intelligent observer consistently. You simply can't go back anymore. And so you're going to feel this profound accountability emerge where every action, every day is an opportunity to just go deeper. And also, there's a mantra I would add, which is helpful for anyone that wants to install this more deeply into their subconscious. Simply, every day, in every way, I'm getting better, better, and better. Because once you implant this coding that you're looking for the opportunity to keep expanding and fortifying your field for the better in every way, everything starts to improve. And you're looking for this opportunity to create that expansion, thereby granting permission for the soul to communicate with more openness and clarity through you. And at that point, just let yourself receive. Feel like this energy pooling inside you wants to grant you even more opportunities to show up better, to be a better human, to give more love, to feel more self-compassion, and to sense that that unity within you wants to create more unity in your life. So it should definitely create a motivation if you apply that.